Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm just going to wait another minute or so just for any latecomers to join, and then we'll get started. While we're waiting, just as I normally do on these things, could somebody please confirm in the chat that you can see my screen, see me, and hear me? Thank you very much. Oh, you can hear me but not see my screen. Okay, let me try again. Cool. Right, okay, let's get started. So, welcome to the webinar. It's the first one we've had for a couple of months. We had to cancel last month, and this is just a rearranged version of that webinar. So if you were signed up for the one last month, thank you for re-signing up to this one. My name is Sam. I'm the Academy Manager as Infigo, as most of you know. And today's webinar is what was new in Infigo this quarter. So we are taking a look back at the last 3 or 4 months in this case. I've taken a bit of a, taken advantage of the fact that this is the first one, just to sort of run you through some of the new features and new enhancements that we've made available within the software. Now, this webinar is about what will be a maximum of 1 hour in duration. So I'm not going to cover absolutely everything that was new within the software, just sort of the highlight headline features. And yes, if you have any questions as we're going through, it is just myself today. I've got no sidekick on this particular session. So if you have any questions, please do put them in the questions panel, and I will try my best to keep an eye on those questions and answer them as we go through. If not, I'll take them away and answer them after the webinar. Okay, so as you can see on the screen here, I do have a page I've created which sort of partners this particular webinar, which you can use after the webinar as additional resources or whatever. So I'm just going to put the link to that in the chat, and that should be freely accessible to everybody on the Infigo Academy, and you shouldn't even need to log in to get to that particular page. Now, what you'll notice at the top of this page, and I'll zoom in as much as I can, is that I do have direct links to a few of the What's New articles that this particular webinar is related to. So hopefully most of you get the circulation of these What's New emails or notifications where we do show what's new each month. As I've said, I'm picking out the highlights, but if you want to look at the full versions of these, I have included the links on here. Also worth a note, which I don't know if everybody knows about, inside these actual articles themselves, we do have links to a full or complete set of release notes as well. So this goes into even not greater depth, but a more extensive list of the changes that have been made in different versions. So the What's New article just sort of shows the highlights, and then we've got the full release notes, which is kind of an everything guide, but in much less detail. Right, so what I'm going to do is just sort of work my way through this page I've made and just show you a few of the different features that we've implemented. And I want to start off with a couple of things that we've introduced within Invent. Starting off, sorry, I'm just reading the message from Dean there, and able to describe to stream in a reasonable time. I'm not sure if that's something from my end or your end. Sorry, Dean. Looks as if other people are able to access. Okay, right, so barcodes and QR codes in Invent. So I've got an example of, or a very simple example on a storefront I've made here. So let me show you what I mean. So we have the ability now to actually set up barcodes of various different types and QR codes within the Invent package, and then have that functional within Mega Edit. So I'll just show you the Mega Edit side of things. And what it basically means is that you can enter data in the form that you get on the right-hand side of your Mega Edit window when you create your Invent template, and then it will update the QR code or the barcode. So this can be used to update barcodes, or it can be used for things like V-cards if you want to as well in QR code format. So you'll see if I start changing the contents of this input here, hopefully you'll see that that barcode is automatically, or the QR code is automatically changing to match that information. Now, to set this up inside Invent is quite an easy thing to do. So I've got another template here. I'm just going to load up a new page. So we'll keep it nice and simple. I'm just going to draw a frame on there to begin with, and then save that document so I can access Infigo Invent. And I apologize if the text on the Invent tab is very small. It's the resolution of the screen, but hopefully you can still see it. So it's very similar to other Invent functionality you will have seen. There's a slight change now where when you go to the Properties tab with an image field selected, instead of just seeing enable or disable the field, and this does assume some prior experience with Invent, I do grant you, instead of just an enable or disable checkbox, you now have a drop-down list. One option, the default, is just static. So that is basically Invent is not seeing this as a variable field. You then have image, which is what sort of Invent 101, how you would actually just create your variable template with an image field. But then we've also got this option for barcode here as well. So if I click on barcode, you'll see the user interface is very similar to other stuff that we've seen in Invent, but it's allowing you to format different parts of the barcode or the QR code or whatever type it is you want to utilize. Now, important note here, you will never see the barcode or QR code when you're creating something inside Invent. It's only going to actually generate when you take it over to your Mega Edit product. But the population of this is quite simple. So you're just choosing the format of the barcode or QR code that you want to utilize. And then you've got relevant bits of data that you can fill in. And then some formatting options such as coloring, font size, if you've got associated text and that kind of thing. One thing I will draw your attention to when you're utilizing QR codes, as well as just the basic input of information, you do have the ability to do some more advanced templates as well. And this is how you would do things such as input information for a QR code or input information for an email and various other bits and pieces. So see if I go to business card, for example, I've got fields such as first name, last name, organization, title. These are all things that will be fed into a V card, which someone could use to just scan on the business card with their phone, and it would auto-populate the contact in their phone. So it's a standard V card format. All you've got to do is fill the information in here, which can either be static text or linked to a variable, which you've created within Invent. Again, standard Invent functionality. And then your usual process of just exporting it from Invent and re-importing it into Mega Edit using your MEX file. And then as we saw, the end result of that is going to be something like this, where you can create a dynamic barcode or QR code. And that will update instantly when you update the relevant information. Okay, so the next topic down I want to talk about is to do with advanced grouping. Now, this is something, probably the biggest thing that's been released over the past few months. And it gives you the ability to, much greater flexibility over sort of spacing of fields and movement of fields within your Invent template. So we've long had the capability to sort of change the position of fields using logic, or you can use, I can't remember the exact name of the functionality, but you can cause fields to sort of move up when other fields are hidden and that kind of thing. This is a more advanced version of similar kind of functionality. So if I just go back to my little demo product here, I'm just going to put on a debug mode so we can actually see the kind of thing it's doing. It's very, very simple. Actually, before I do this, let me show you this little GIF I've got here just to sort of demonstrate what it's doing. So again, it's very simple, but what you can see is we've got our form over on the right-hand side, and we're adding, removing, and changing information in different fields in that form. And what you can see is that the information on the left-hand side, which is on the actual product itself, is very effectively updating. So based on the amount of text that we've got in, the amount of lines of text, other fields are moving down. We change the image that's being utilized. If that image is bigger, then it will, again, maintain the spacing to the other fields. It's very, very dynamic in how it works. And again, the example I was going to show here was the fact that we can maintain spacing even if we're doing something like changing the text that's in a particular field. So if I start adding more text to here, you can see that my center text field here is automatically moving. My right text is not because I've set it not to, and it's maintaining the spacing or maintaining the distribution of spacing between the fields. So it gives you a lot of different capabilities. Now, actually setting this up is, again, quite easy once you've got the basic hang of things. So you can see I've got my examples here, which I've just shown you in the completed version of it. What we basically have is we're using grouping, so sort of grouping of different fields inside InDesign, the standard InDesign bit of functionality. And then we control how the different elements of that group are related to each other. So we can define the margins between those different elements of that group, and we can define the size and the behavior of that element as well. Now, an important thing to note is that you can just group boxes together or fields together, and you would just get a sort of boundary of that area. But what we've also got the ability to do as well, as you can see with this field here, is to actually create a simulated boundary. So if you want a sort of wider boundary box on the group that you're creating, you can just put an empty image frame in the background, and then we can set that to actually be a boundary frame. So let me just set an example of this up really, really quickly. So what I'm going to do is just create a few frames. So I've got my empty image frame there, and I'll just put a couple of text fields. I'm going to move those together. And then using the InDesign bit of functionality, I'm going to select all those, right-click, and group them together. Now, this is the same kind of thing that you did with the existing suppression functionality. Now, in order to get these into, well, first thing I'm going to do is just rename that layer just to give myself a little bit of clarity. I'll rename that group. And my fields. And then again, standard invent functionality, I'm going to make sure that all of those fields within that group are enabled. Once those are enabled, I'm able to enable the actual group itself. Again, existing functionality. However, what we're able to do now is to actually use this advanced options button here, which is new with this functionality. And this allows us to control whether the spacing behavior that we're going to specify is just vertical behavior, horizontal behavior, or both. We'll keep this nice and simple. We'll just keep it horizontal behavior, just because we've got these two fields next to each other. And then you see we have the ability to specify this boundary item. Now, this is where we're specifying this background field here as a boundary, just to mean that we can specify some additional spacing, additional padding to the edge, which you'll see in a moment. If we don't have to have a boundary. If we do specify the boundary, it means that when we transfer this over to Mega Edit, it won't recognize this as a variable field. It will just be sort of hidden away in the background and used for this advanced grouping. So I'll set my boundary box. You see it's automatically recognized that that empty image frame I have is a potential boundary. And then you'll see that we have our two text fields. Now, if we expand these advanced settings here, what you'll see is that we've got left, right, and size. Now, these left and right are the margins from the actual field itself. So our text 1 and text 2 fields. And then we've got width, because I've specified I want to just modify it horizontally, which is controlling the width of the actual field itself. And we've got the ability to completely choose how these fields are going to interact and move with one another. So it could be as simple as keeping the width static, or we could have it so it's a specific value, which we can specify the unit for if we wish, whether it's automatically calculating the width based on other available spaces. So we can have it so that the width or the positioning is changing based on other content within the group. Or we can have the size based on content. And that's when it will actually change the size of the box based on the content that you're placing within it, whether that be text or an image or whatever. We've also got this left and right margin, as I mentioned. If we leave those as the default of self, that just means it's going to keep the margin size that's already selected or already specified within Invent. We also have an ability to specify value, so we can actually specify what that margin is going to be, or we can specify auto. Now, this just gives us a sort of a weighting, and it allows us to make sure that the spacing between our fields, so our margin sizes, are dynamically sized. So we can make it so that the sizing or the spacing between the different fields will change based on the available space. Now, trying to describe this in a few minutes is a little bit of a difficult task. I will try a little bit more in a moment, but just to draw your attention to the page that I've been showing you, there are some more advanced tutorials if you are interested in this, which go through it in more detail. So there's examples on configuring this functionality, on how the margin sizes work and how you would calculate those margin sizes. And there's an example of putting it into practice as well. So if you are interested in this, there are resources you can utilize to see that in a bit more detail. You'll notice in here as well that we have some predefined options. So this will automatically configure these advanced settings for you based on what you've selected. And it's basically just some initial starting points for you, which you can go ahead and modify further if you wish to do so. So things like left alignment, right alignment, whether you want to space things with just spacing in between the fields or spacing around the fields. Again, it's all explained in those tutorials. Just to show you on my little demonstration product what these actually do. So you'll see here, for example, that I've got left align specified on this one here, which basically means that my left text box is being glued to one particular side, and then all of the other text boxes are sort of shifted along with it, maintaining the space that I've specified to give me the behavior I want. We have centrally aligned, so that means that the center box is in the middle. We've got the left and right text box, again with the spacing specified as we have in that invent setup. And then we've already seen the behavior at the bottom here, where we've actually got some automatic spacing being calculated based on the available space between those fields. So as we change the length of the text, the available space within that particular group is going to change. So therefore, it repositions the fields and changes the spacing based on those rules that we've specified. And all this is doing in the background is changing those margin and size settings. Now, I do appreciate that that's a very quick overview of advanced grouping, but the possibilities with this are very, very advanced. So you can get some very complex products built using this kind of functionality. And as I mentioned, there are tutorials on this if you want to go into more detail, or you can ask us some additional questions. All right, so the next section I've got here is not something I'm going to be able to show you. It's more things that we're doing in the background to just try and constantly improve the Infigo system. Now, these platform enhancements are just something that we're constantly trying to do. So it's not like a 1 month drive to improve performance and that's it. It's stuff that we're doing month on month and month and just trying to constantly improve the system. That being said, there was a particular push in the last quarter for performance improvements. And what I've got listed there is just a few examples of ways in which the system has been improved performance-wise over the course of that 3 or 4 months. So things, for example, improving the speed of iframe loading for people that use the MegaEdit editor through iframe, enhanced database indexing, several areas where we've incorporated extra caching to speed things up, faster loading of the cart or the basket, various different areas. Some of them will create a big improvement in performance. Some of them will be much more subtle or for more specific scenarios. But this is just included to let you know that we do have a constant improvement process on the performance of the system. Okay, so just going to look at the question that's come in before I proceed. So with each barcode type, can Invent automatically identify the limitations? I believe it can. So it shouldn't give you all of the different available options for every single barcode type. So if I go to barcode on here, let's see. So if I go to EAN 13, you can see the information that it's giving me there is just a mapped value. So it's giving me just the ability to do some static text or link it to a variable. And that would be a text type variable that's going to allow. And then the limitations on what can be put in there would be based on the actual variable itself. So if you've put some limitations on the variable to say that it can only be numeric data, then that will be brought over to here as well. But it's relying on the variable for its validation criteria. Okay, so next section down is enhanced multi-part editor for single file uploads. So this is not something which is difficult to utilize or anything like that. It's just a sort of generic upgrade to our default editor for multi-part products. Now, you may know it as a few different things. It is technically called multi-part product in Infigo. You'll often refer to it called as upload products because that's what it's most often used for as well. But it's long been required for us to update the user interface on that in order to reflect the fact that most people use it just for uploading PDFs and submitting through the Infigo system. So we've updated the user interface just so you know that if you create any brand new storefronts, this new interface will be enabled automatically. However, if you want to enable this on existing storefronts, you will need to go to or enable this checkbox, which can be found in your Infigo settings page. and then you're looking for use new multi-part editor UI, and that will just update it for you. So let's just make a quick example here and just show you how quick and easy this is. So I'm just going to add a new product. It's just going to be a multi-part type product. And if I can type, this should be quite quick. Now the configuration is virtually identical to what it was before. So you've still got your product landing page and all that. You do have a few multi-part configuration specific options, again, most of which were exactly the same as they were previously. Now, for those that are more familiar with the multi-part product type, you do have the ability to do a lot of custom config with this, but I would consider that to be a lot more advanced. What we're looking at here is just the fundamental core functionality of the multi-part product, which is just to use it to receive a PDF from your customers. So we're not going to do any custom script in this particular case. We're just looking at single PDF uploads. So even with that default product that we've just set up there, as soon as I go to my product landing page and then start the editor process, we can see a much more streamlined and user-friendly approach to how this actually works. So it's got some information over on the left-hand side, which in this case is just the quantity we've selected. We've got the ability to select or drag and drop a piece of artwork. So let me just find something to actually drag and drop in there. Let's go with, PDF. All right, I can't find anything good, so it's just going to have to be this. You can see once the PDF is actually uploaded, it's giving you a nice little preview of the first page. And then once the customer's happy, they can go ahead and preview, which will allow them to preview the multiple pages if it was part of this particular PDF, and then add to basket. Now, you've got the ability to enhance this experience even more quite simply using just core functionality within Infigo. So I've got an example of a slightly more built out version of this editor. And you can see in this case, I've put on a couple of attributes, which can be multiple types of attributes, can be just option selections or text inputs. And then start that process again. Now there's a few changes. You can see that my attribute information is now displayed over on the top left. So the user has full visibility over the attribute selections that have been chosen whilst they're uploading their PDF. I've also included some upload requirements. So if you do have specific requirements as to what you would accept in terms of a PDF, you can put information in there. That information can be written using just rich text editor, or you can utilize content templates in there as well. And then also over on the top right, again, using default Infigo functionality, this time a sample download product, you can see we give them the ability to use a download example PDF as well. So if you want to provide them with a template as to the format of information you're expecting and would accept, you can give them a downloadable product sample. Clicking that button will just give them the instant download. And then there you go. So with very little configuration, you can see it's quite a nice, handy user experience. Okay, and again, if you're wanting a bit more information on this, there is a link to a tutorial resource on the page I've given you. Okay, so the next option down is checkout requirements. So again, this is a new feature within the last few months, and this gives you the ability to apply various different rules to prevent users from proceeding to the checkout under certain scenarios where you might not want them to actually place an order. So this is accessed through the checkout settings. So if I go to my Infigo admin area, go to checkout settings, and then you'll see now that we have this checkout requirements section down here. Now there's various different things that we can include to actually put these checkout rules or checkout requirements on there. So we can say in any of these rules that we apply, we can either grant or deny the ability to proceed to checkout. But the things that you can, or the rules that you can apply relate to shipping fees, particular product tags. So if you do or don't have a product tag, you can apply or deny the ability to proceed to checkout. Product groups, order subtotal, order quantity, so the amount of order lines, order line total, order line quantity, particular checkout attributes, or a particular category. So there's a lot of different things that you can cover in these scenarios. Now, the specification of each of these is marginally different, as they might have slightly different requirements, such as a price input or a quantity input or something, but it is fairly similar in how it's done. So I've created a sample one here that I'll just show you. If you want to add a new item to any of these, you just click the associated button. And then all you're doing is defining the particular scenario. So in this example here, I've gone for order subtotal. So what it basically means is I can specify if the order subtotal does not meet my threshold, then don't proceed to checkout. This requires a specification of a customer role that this applies to. You can also set that to a specific customer or a department if it's required to you. So for example, I can say customer role, and to keep it very generic, I might just say it applies to all registered users. And then I'm specifying my threshold. So I can say if it's above 0 and below 10, then disallow checkout, for example. And that would mean that if it's below 10 of my currency, so £10 in my case, then I can't proceed to the checkout. So it requires an order above £10 to proceed. I'll save that. Go to the top of the screen and make sure you save that as well. Now, you've also got this debug mode here, which is very, very useful, which I'll show you in a moment. And this allows you to actually see if your rules are being applied and why they're being applied or why they're not being applied. So I will go to my front end and proceed to basket. I can see I've got a couple of things here, and both of them are set at £0. So I don't meet my price threshold. You can see that I have a message here which is indicating as such. And then if I try and proceed to checkout, it's just going to return me to the checkout page. It's not going to let me proceed. Now, in terms of debugging this, so if you are setting up some fairly complex checkout rules, if you have that debug mode set on, if you right-click and go to Inspect, this might differ ever so slightly based on the browser that you're using, but it should be fairly straightforward. And go to Console. Now, this will give you some information in here as to why you can't pass checkout or can pass checkout. So this is saying that you can't pass checkout because that particular rule is equating to 0 and it doesn't meet my requirements. If you want to make that not available to everybody who's viewing this, then just disable that debug mode that we talked about earlier on. Okay, and again, if you want to find more information on this, we do have a tutorial available, which is linked from that page. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at questions. Okay, so the question that's on multi-part, it's not one I'll be able to answer right now, unfortunately, so I will have to take that one away. But just to let you know, I have seen it, and I will follow that up after the webinar. Okay. The next section I want to cover, again, very briefly, is to do with custom quoting in PrintIQ. Now, I'm cheating a little bit here because the custom quoting feature was introduced quite early in 2024, so not in this quarter. However, it has been undergoing like a constant improvement process. That's why I've justified putting it in. So I've got an example storefront, which all of you can get to if you want to. It's just our demo PrintIQ storefront. And of course, this is only relevant to those users that are Connect PrintIQ users. Now, just to give you some information on what this improvement, this custom quoting actually does. So this is a major update, to be honest. It's a substantial update that allows us to obtain fully specified custom quotations from PrintIQ for use in our Infigo storefronts. Now, until this particular feature was introduced, in order to create an estimate and retrieve live pricing from any connected PrintIQ integration, it required you to create individual SKUs for each combination of products that you wanted to offer. So, for example, if you had 5 different sizes for your product, 2 different stock types, and another 2 different finishes, it meant that you would need to create 20 different SKUs within PrintIQ in order to sort of map all of those possibilities. This new functionality removes the need to create these products up front, and it instead allows you to build up a detailed mapping between your Infigo product and its PrintIQ equivalent using its various different component parts of that particular product. This works by building up a base specification for the product on an actual Infigo product level itself, and then overriding certain parts of that specification on maybe a product attribute or an attribute combination level. And this allows you to build up these more complex quotations. So just to show you what I mean here. So we've got a few different sizes and some custom sizing. This is linked to a PrintIQ instance. And you'll see that if I request price based on those specifications I've got, it takes a little moment because it is having to query the connected PrintIQ instance, but it will return the price for us for that particular specification. See, it's returned that price there. And then if we make some changes, so for example, if I make a custom size, I don't know what value this is expecting, so this may fail, but let's try that. So again, you've got the ability here to put in a custom size, which means that it's not just creating individual SKUs. It is dynamically using some linked parts of the specification. Now, how this actually functions, for those that are more familiar with our PrintIQ integration. So within the actual connect link option on my product, at a product level, first of all, So I've specified, instead of stock or print on demand, which you might be used to previously, you can select custom. And this allows you to select all the different sections and processes and operations. All this information is drawn through from PrintIQ. So this will differ for each user based on what you've specified in PrintIQ, but it allows you to specify the different component parts of that product specification. So that's on a product level itself. If you then need to start changing that specification based on, let's say, different attributes or different attribute combinations, you simply go deeper into that product. So for example, I'll go to some attribute values. Again, go to connect link. And what you'll find is that we've got a very similar specification, but we can specify most of it to be inherited. So we'll just inherit it from the previous thing we specified. However, where necessary, we can change the specification so that we know that if that option is selected, we're getting an updated price based on that selection. And again, that information is being drawn from the linked MIS from PrintIQ. Okay, that is that in a nutshell. Once again, we do have some additional tutorials available for this if it is of interest to yourselves. So 3 different tutorials. One is a very quick introduction, then a couple more detailed. Right, something else that's been introduced or at least built upon on the last couple of months is add to cart. So this seems like a standard bit of functionality. It's e-commerce. You need to be able to add things to cart in order for people to buy them. But what we've done is we've given you the ability to a few different ways to add things to cart. So rather than just the traditional method of having to go to the landing page and add things there, we've now added the ability to do things from the teaser pages, for example. So let me show you what I mean. So for example, here I'm on my featured product, and you'll see that if I hover over a stock or a static PDF product, which this one is, I have the ability, one, to select the quantity, which again, we can turn on or off as required. And then we have the ability to directly add this to cart. So we don't actually have to go to the product landing page if we don't want to. So this is quick ordering, we're calling this one. So for example, I could say add 2 of those, put it straight into basket. And you can see with the configuration I've got here, it's not even navigating away from my home page. And again, that's something that we're able to specify. So we can specify what the redirection behavior is going to be when we add things to cart. So we can either say no redirection, so it will just give us a little pop-up message at the bottom of the screen to say it's been added to cart. We can say it goes straight to checkout if you want people to just purchase one product at a time, let's say. Or you can do the standard traditional bit of functionality that we had, which is just to take you to the basket when you add something to your cart or basket. Another thing that we've added the ability to do is to multi-select products and add them to basket. Now, this is from within the category pages themselves. So I've set up a featured category here to show you as an example. And you'll see that in this particular simple category, I have the ability to select, again, relevant products. This won't work for products which need to be modified or need to be or a variable. So things like where you're expecting to upload a PDF in a multi-part, it won't work for that. Or if it's a multi-part, a mega edit product where you need to go into the editor, it won't work for that. This is just product types where you don't need to perform any modification. So you can add them straight to basket. So you see that I can multi-select those. Again, I can put in the quantity if I want to, and then add those to basket. Okay, you can see those added here. Right, so where you actually put those options in, I've got some details on the little page here. It's in the catalog settings. So there's just a few options to be aware of. One of them is right at the top. So fourth one down, which is show quantity selector in catalog pages. That allows you to actually do the quantity selection in the teaser page. And then right down at the, not right down at the bottom, where are we? Down at the bottom of the main section, you've got this redirect on add to cart. So this is where we control the redirection behavior, which you can either be no redirect, which is the functionality you saw me do, cart, or checkout. And this applies, just to be aware, to both the landing pages and to the teaser pages. Now, to do it for the categories and to be able to enable the multi-select, that is done on a per category basis. So if I go to my Manage Categories screen, edit one of those. In my display settings for that category, right down at the bottom, I have add to basket mode. Now, the traditional approach is normal, so you can just select and add one product at a time, or you can enable multi-select as well. Okay, so let me see if I can quickly answer any of the other questions that have come in. And again, if I don't mention your question, I have still seen them. I'll get back to you afterwards. Good question about how it ties in with how the checkout requirements ties in with the existing order settings. I think they'll work just together. They should work together. But I'll clarify that one for you and just see how that one works. So I'll get back to you. Okay. So can the add to cart be configured for use when in category or catalog? So that add to cart option should apply wherever these teaser pages appear. And the functionality that you select in the catalog settings should be storefront wide. So I just showed it on the home page as featured products and featured categories. But it should appear as well in the category pages, hopefully as I demonstrated, but I don't know if it was overly clear, and in things such as the search results as well. So you can do it from all those different locations. But yeah, that redirect behavior or non-redirect behavior, again, should be storefront wide. And then if you enable these options, does the site automatically apply the quick buy to static items? So yes, if you enable these, it should apply it sort of, as again, storefront wide to existing products as well. It's not something you should have to enable on a product by product basis, as far as I'm aware. Right. So just over 10 minutes left. I think we've got enough. Next thing I want to talk about is Connect SERM, and this will be a very brief overview because it is a large beast, this one. Again, it was officially released probably a little before the last quarter, but it's still going under constant updates. So this is our latest integration with an MIS provider. This one is more specifically for the industrial labeling and packaging sector. Now, the Connect SERM integration, generally speaking, it works very similar to all of our MIS integrations in terms of what it's doing. So let me just get, again, one of our demo pages just to use as a reference. So there's a few examples here of what kind of thing it will allow you to do. So you retrieve estimates, push orders from Infigo into SERM, reorder products, upload artwork directly to SERM, to your MIS, that kind of thing. The things that most of our MIS integrations do. There is a few things in this integration as well, which are more specific to SERM and the way in which it in particular does things. And we've got, again, loads of tutorials which will go through this, and this sample page and videos which will show you what they do. But just in a nutshell, if you use Connect SERM, you have these direct access to things such as your SERM estimates, as they call them, your SERM products, as they call them, which is orders that you've already placed, and then your existing orders. So what a good thing about this integration it allows you to do is to go and draw in the estimates from SERM that you've already created. So this will be where the attributes have already been configured on a product, but the artwork is not fixed. So let's say, for example, you've got a label which is of a particular size and a particular material, but you want to change the artwork. You can go into a previous estimate and replace the order with a new piece of artwork. You can do that from in here. Then we also have products. So that is slightly different again, where the order has been placed. So it's got its specified attributes and it's got its specified artwork. And if you just want to reload that again or repurchase that again, then you can just go into the products. And yeah, various associated bit of functionality. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. As I say, it's a very big area of information, but if you are curious, please do get in touch with us and we can provide some more information. Right, then I've got a few quicker things that I've just put into this best of the rest section, starting off with content management quick access. So there was a separate notification about this, so hopefully everybody knows, and it is a very useful bit of functionality. This is just something we've introduced to improve the cohesion between the front and back end of Infigo. So, for example, if you want to quickly edit a particular page or a particular editable content block or something like that, you can now access it directly from the front end rather than having to try and locate it by going through the admin area of Infigo. So let me show you what I mean. Homepage is as good a place as any. If you're logged in as an administrator, you will see this little icon on the bottom left of the front end page. This gives you this content overlay, which allows you to automatically jump to different areas that are associated with this particular page. So, for example, if I click on homepage banner, that will go directly to the editable content block associated with this. And that opens it up in a new tab. You've also got this option here, which is content overlay. And that allows you to actually interact directly with those. So a little bit of additional interaction again, where you can actually see where those different pieces are on your page and jump straight to the editing of that particular section using the edit button on the right-hand side of it. So for example, if I go to the header, edit, and that will take me directly to the header editing. And that applies on all different page types. So for example, if I go to a product page, again, go to this, you can see I've got the same set of options, but I've also got the ability to jump straight to the product editing page as well. Time-saving feature. Seems like such a simple thing, but it's so useful. And as I can see from the couple of messages, you guys like this one as well. Okay, let me fire through this list. So a couple of enhancements on content templates. So first thing is content template sets. Now this again is very useful and hopefully you're all aware of. It gives you the ability to save particular configurations of your content templates that you've built and may want to reuse over and over again on the same page or on different pages. I use this extensively in the academy, and it saves me a bunch of time. So what I mean by this, if I go to, let's go to a content page just to make this nice and easy. Content template editor, builder. So what most of you might be familiar with by this point. Then start adding layouts and different pieces of information. Now you'll notice that we now have the save icon on these different content blocks, and that gives us the ability to save those and then reuse them in identical areas but on different pages. So for example, if I save the entire section, and this will include the content, by the way, as well. So if I put specific images or embeds or whatever, it will also save that. If I save that, enter a name, I can then reuse that in an identical area. So if I say load, for example, you can see I've got this saved set, and that allows me to quickly create a duplicated version of that in this and other areas. So it doesn't have to be on the same page. In that same vein, if you are wanting to duplicate things on a single page, you now do have this duplicate option as well. So if you have created a fairly complex bit of content template, you can just duplicate the entire section or the individual parts of that section, which will make it nice and useful for you and saves you a bunch of time, as I can attest to personally. Okay, couple of minutes left, so I'll choose my favorites from these remaining ones. So we do have the ability in content templates to unpublish certain bits of content as well now. So in any of your areas on your content templates, if you click on configure, you've now got the option to publish or unpublish that particular section. So if you have built out a full area that you want to just hide temporarily, let's say you've built an area specifically for a Christmas celebration or a holiday celebration or something you don't want to show straight away, you can do it without having to have it visible all the time. Okay, you can include a token, which is going to show you if your customer that's logged in has any unpaid orders. We've enhanced the ability of approval links to now be used on, well, to be visible when a customer has the approver or registered status as well, which has just made things a bit more streamlined. And then the last thing in the last minute or so, again, something I can't show you, but just make you aware of, we have enhanced the API a little bit further as well. So you now have additional product attribute support as part of the API, and we've updated the product API endpoints. And this latter of those two has a specific entry within our API documentation if you want some additional information on how to use that. Okay, so that's all the information I've got. I appreciate there's a couple of questions, and thank you guys for answering some of them whilst we've been going through. Much appreciated. One thing I want to say before we finish is I want to make sure that these webinars are relevant to you guys and topics that are relevant to you guys. So I will send this out in an email and a notification as well. But on the bottom of the page I've given you, I have included a form in here as well, which will give you an option to select some webinar topics that you might want to see. Please feel free, if you want to do this, to select as many or as few as you like. You have got the option to input your own potential topics in here as well if there's something you would like to see that I've not included. This is anonymous, so you can put in whatever you like or select whatever you like. Just as a point of interest, I've also included a feedback on this webinar or the Infigo Academy as well. I do want to get your feedback on everything that we do, just to make sure that it's useful and relevant and whatever else. Again, it's anonymous, so you can be as kind or as mean as you like. But if you do want me to get in touch with you related to a comment that you make, please do put your name or your contact information in, so I do know it's you that sent it. Okay, and that is about it, and we are on the hour. So let me see if there's any last minute questions I can answer before we finish. Okay, so does the save set across different storefronts? You know, I'd need to check on that, but I don't think it does. I think it just saves the set within the same storefronts, but I will verify that. And if it's not included in there, I'll see if I can put it in as a future feature request. Okay. And then would this allow me to have the breadcrumbs default to show on all new items? Keegan, I'm afraid I don't know which particular section you're referring to there. My apologies. Yeah, and so you're giving some additional context. Oh, product display page. So the breadcrumbs, again, that is something you do have to do on individual categories, individual products, isn't it? So that is still part of the individual display settings, I believe. A way around that is you could, if it's relevant to you, you could just have template products, which you have unpublished in the background, which have most of your things configured, or just copy existing products. But yeah, I do get what you're saying there. Okay, and then do you have to enable the approval or work in progress in the new header UI, or is it enabled by default? I think that's enabled as part of the approval workflow process. So when you have approval workflow enabled and configured, and then the user that's viewing it is a relevant user, it should show those links in the dropdown. Now, we do have a bunch of tutorials on the Academy for setting up the approval workflow. For additional context on that, or if you need some additional help, the support team can help you sort that out. Okay. And then finally, are you able to show stock notifications from a global level? Ooh, good question. Okay, so you do have the ability to show stock on catalog pages, but it probably is still related to the individual settings of the product. Again, that's something I probably need to check in terms of actually test it on my particular storefront. But I think you would still need to enable them on a per product basis if you want to show stock notifications rather than doing it globally. But again, I'll verify and get back to you. Okay. Right. I think that's everything I can answer for now. Appreciate there's a few that have gone unanswered or need some additional information. But I have gone past my allotted time. So thank you for you guys that have stuck around. I hope it's been useful. The recording of this will be available on the Academy, probably from tomorrow, if you want to view it again or send it to colleagues or whatever. And the page that I've given you of reference material will remain up on the Academy in perpetuity, so you can utilize that. Again, please do remember to fill in that little form if you do have time. Knowing what it is that you guys want to see will be really good in making sure that we make effective content. But thank you very much for your attention. And that's it. I'll speak to you guys next month for the next webinar. See you next time.